And we are live. Hi, Club of More. Welcome back to another video. This is our Worthy Women Winning series, and my name is Dejanay Knuckles, also known as the Worthy Mother, helping you birth your self worth and redefine your perception of relationships. And though I am well versed in coaching women through separation and divorce, my journey was rooted in heartbreak and turmoil. So when I found out that my then husband was and his infidelity, when I found out about that, I started to just embrace my self-worth. And then through my journey of healing, that's how I came up with this series. I just wanted to showcase women who were thriving after divorce, so that women that are still struggling in the process could know that there's joy and freedom after their pain. And so if you are a woman who is separated or divorced and you want to experience that freedom, you can head over to bit.ly/the worthy mother and sign up for a free 15-minute discovery call. Also, disclaimer, my daughter is here in the background, so if she interrupts, then we will just keep the ball rolling. And so without further ado, we have Vernie here. She is our first guest that is remarried. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. You can go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Vernie Norwood Bounds. I live in Las Vegas, but I'm originally from Texas, up in North Texas. I am remarried. I work for the Department of the Army, a federal employee, and I also am in the Army Reserves. I have the privilege of training soldiers in things like master resilience, suicide prevention, sexual assault, and sexual harassment. Um, between us, me and my husband, we have 4 adult children and 4 grandchildren.
Oh, that's so nice. But that's interesting. That's very interesting. So how is that? How is working with soldiers and in the army? I've
It,
never I never encountered anybody that worked in the army before, so it's interesting.
it's great. It is really fulfilling. I came into it late, I say kind of late in my life because I joined the Army Reserves when I was in my late 30s, almost going into 40.
Yeah.
And that's usually the time anybody that knows anything about the military is if you came in active duty at 18 or 19, you're on your way of getting out. And
Yeah.
here I was coming in. But it has been exciting and rewarding. And as I, because I'm getting to the end, and as I get ready to transition out of that part of my life, I am getting in, or I am working on getting into coaching also,
Oh,
for women that are 50 and older, and courageous women that still full of life, and
yeah.
that have put things on hold because careers or families, but now they're wanting to get back out there and do things for themselves that
Yeah.
sometimes life have told us that we're too old to be doing.
Yeah.
I get that a lot sometimes from my adult children. I'll tell them I'm going to do something and they'll be like, "You're too old for that." And
Yeah.
I go, "I'm not too old."
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That is awesome. So I guess we can hop right into the questions. And so my first question to you is, when it comes to relationships, with your parents or the people that you grew up around, how were those relationships with like mom and dad? Were you in a two-parent household, healthy environment, unhealthy environment, single parent household? What about the environment that you grew up when you were a kid?
So I was kind of in what I know was kind of unhealthy growing up. And I say that because I was not raised by my parents. I was kind of raised by everybody. When
Mhm.
I say I was kind of raised by everybody, in my earlier years, I was raised by my grandparents, my dad's parents. I spent the majority of the time with them, but there was times that, I stayed with my mother, or I stayed with other family members or even friends part of my life up until I was about 16 years old. And that was because my mom was a drug addict and was incarcerated the majority of my childhood years. So that's why that I wasn't with her. So I pretty much, like I said, was with everybody or anybody until I was 16 years old.
Okay. Do you think that those environments played a role in your relationships as you got older?
Most definitely, how I talk about until I got 16 years old. So my grandparents were religious people,
Mhm.
very religious people. My grandmother was one, I don't care what you did, you were going to hell. You know, she
Yeah.
was like, whatever you do, you're going to hell. I don't care what it is. And they were just very religious people. We when I was with them, we went to church, that 7 days a week church,
Yeah.
and they were very religious. But I come to find out as I gotten older, there's no bad things, about my grandparents. I mean, they were who they were. They were
Mhm.
doing the best they can, and now they were raising, having to raise their granddaughter,
Yeah.
after they've raised their kids.
Yeah.
But with that being said, moving on to when I was saying I was 16 years old, because that they were the way that they were. When I got 16 years old, you kind of get into that you like boys, and
Mhm.
you start to um want to be around boys and things like that. And so with that being said, as I stepped into that area, someone I met, I started spending a lot of time with them, to where I would either come back late to my grandparents, or maybe I wouldn't come back at all. And so
Yeah.
my grandmother was like, "Hey, if you're going to be out there with that guy, and if y'all, she already knew the thing, if you're going to be out there with that guy, and especially if y'all going to have sex, you need to get married."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, not long after that, we got married.
Hmm.
And so I was married at 16 years old.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I can tell you, I was not ready.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about marriage or
Yeah.
what I was doing. All I know is, I was having feelings.
Hmm.
You have feelings
Yeah.
inside and outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just want to, be doing your thing because, like I said, you have strict grandparents, or
Hmm.
have you. And so I moved into that situation, what turned out to be a really really bad situation, because I really didn't know the person. I didn't know them. I kind of just met them. And then, a lot of times people show us what they want us to see in
Yes.
order for us to like them,
Mhm.
and potentially fall in love with them.
Yeah.
And so he was showing that a lot, things that, I didn't know, or I hadn't, been exposed to.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, yeah, I really, really like this guy. And so, with that being said, what came out of that relationship was physical abuse
Oh, wow.
and sexual abuse,
Mm.
you know, and I just want to tell, anyone out there that's listening, because sometimes, we don't believe this, or society doesn't believe this, but you can be raped by your husband.
Hmm.
You can definitely be raped by your husband. And I say that to say, not in the sense of, just the fact that maybe you said no and they kept going. I mean, we know that part too can be rape, but some people don't see that if that's your husband. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, if it is violent.
Mm.
And so I was in that situation that it was violent. So therefore, it was not just sex, it was rape. And then like I said, physical abuse.
Mm-hmm. That's heavy.
Yeah.
So how?
And,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, and so I was going to say, so, I know I needed to get out of that situation. And it was at that time, I didn't know, but I know it was God's intervention
Mm-hmm.
that got
Mm-hmm.
me out of that situation
Yeah.
because he too was in the Army Reserves. And this was way back. He was in the Army Reserves and he decided he wanted to go active duty.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was being shipped off to another state
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted me to go. And everything in my gut told me, if you go, you're not going to make it back.
Oh, wow.
And so I just knew that I couldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not leave with him. I stayed right there where I was. But instead of me staying with my grandparents, I went to stay with my mom's mom.
Mm-hmm.
And just a little quick background on my mom's mother. She was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was verbally abusive,
Mm.
just real verbally abusive and could be very embarrassing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But at the time, um, to me, I kind of felt like it was better to stay with her than to stay with my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Ooh, that's a lot. So how going through all of that you did in your marriage, how did you try to, well, did you try to get any healing afterwards after you divorced? Yeah, did you do anything to combat all that abuse that you went through?
not really at that time. So,
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you about that.
Mm-hmm.
Not at that time. I just know that I needed to get away from him and that I needed to, stay put and figure out what I was going to do
Mm-hmm.
or what was going to be happening next in my life.
Yeah.
So I, because sometimes what we do as women, we say, you find somebody else
Yeah, yeah.
to heal up that.
Mm-hmm.
So I found someone else.
Yeah.
And again, with the thinking that I had, the knowledge I had at the time already,
Mm-hmm.
from my grandparents, is when I met this other person, it was immediate that we get married.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I then got married again.
Mm-hmm.
And now I was 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I got married again. This man would be the father to my children. I have two adult children, and
Mm-hmm.
he would be the father to my children.
Mm-hmm.
And so our marriage too ended in divorce
Mm.
because of physical abuse.
Oh, wow.
But in this situation, it was kind of like, sometimes you meet someone new, and if you haven't healed, because I hadn't healed,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, moving on and an autopilot in my life. So I
Yeah.
hadn't healed. I don't know how to heal. I don't know what to do. For all I know, this is normal
Yeah.
stuff, because I hadn't seen anything different.
Right. Right.
So, so, with this husband and the father of my children, I remember telling him that story, the story of the relationship I've been in before. Because sometimes that's what we do as women. We
Yeah.
kind of get with somebody and we tell them up front, because we feel that they care and they love us. We tell them up front what we've been through so that now they don't take us through those same things.
Yeah.
But in this case, and sometimes with others, it backfired.
Yeah.
So I had told him, about the physical abuse and about the things. And now he was physical abusing me because I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, in his mind, he's thinking if she took it once, she'll take it now.
Yeah, yeah. Mm, that's
So, you
yeah.
know, that was that situation.
Hmm. Hmm. So when did you start to get the healing for you to transition into the marriage that you're in today?
So I started to heal um probably when I got out of that relationship. I started because the way I got out of that relationship is growing up, just a little backstory.
Hmm.
Growing up, there was some times when my mom wasn't incarcerated.
Hmm.
And so if I was with my grandmother, her mom, then she may come there, and then my father may come there, and they weren't even together, and they would, so I remember this from my childhood, them getting into fist fights that turned to blood and things like that. And I remember as a child me saying, I don't ever want to be in a marriage like that. I don't want to be, where I'm going to be abusive or be abused or things like that. So
Yeah.
then when with my children's father, when this started happening and now I had children, I was thinking to myself, I can't allow them to go through this because I
Hmm.
went through it. And I
Yeah.
had already said that when I had children, or even before that, I had said when I got married that I wasn't going to be in an abusive relationship. And
Yeah.
now I had children, and I just didn't want them to experience the things that I had been through.
Right.
So I decided I need to leave their father.
Hmm.
But I didn't know where I was going to go because look where I come from,
Hmm.
that where I had already been that
Hmm.
were, not um, places or good places. So I left their father, and I went to a shelter for battered women.
Hmm.
I took them and I went to a shelter, and we stayed in that shelter for about 2 or 3 months
Hmm.
until I could, uh, get steady work and be able to get a place for them and for myself.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning journey, is just deciding that I wanted so much better for my children. And I know that I had needed to get them out of this situation and to be able to start a new life with them.
Yeah.
And so I started that journey there. And so from there, once we left the shelter and we got our own place, I would start to read self-help books,
Hmm.
just books about, how to get rid of some of the drama that I had grew up in.
Hmm.
So that's where I started my journey of healing, is just by reading books and just trying to put myself into positive environments.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. That's how I started too. I started reading books and watching sermons. So that's how I started my healing process as well. So that's good though. So tell me a little bit more about how you met your husband now. So what I guess my first question is, what are the do you know what green flags are? Like
Yes.
not red flags, but green flags.
Hmm.
What were the green flags that you noticed with the your husband now that you hadn't noticed in your previous marriages?
Um, Let me take it back just a little bit before
Mhm.
we get into that part.
Okay.
So once I started the journey, like I said, of trying to heal myself,
Mhm.
um, I know that I needed more help. I couldn't read because with the knowledge I had, even if I read the book, I really didn't understand it or knew how to apply what I read.
Mhm.
So I know that I needed more help and able to move past all of that and to begin to create, healthy habits, a healthy environment for me and my children. So on after, starting to read these books, I started therapy.
Yeah.
So I started a therapy and I started going to it and just trying to really heal.
Mhm.
And then once I was into therapy and, really starting to change some habits, change some things, I decided that I needed to uh, build a relationship on my own with God.
Yeah.
Because I know, what my grandmother and them had taught me and stuff, but
Yeah.
what they did teach me was that that was a foundation.
Yeah.
And so I, um, on my own, then joined a church, got
Mhm.
baptized,
Mhm.
start, you know, following, the teachings of the Bible, started, building my own relationship with God that nobody didn't teach me, nobody didn't tell me this how, but my own relationship
Mhm.
with Him.
Yeah.
And so as I built that relationship with Him, I began to get stronger and stronger, you
Mhm.
know, from that. And then it allowed me to continue into therapy and just, continue to, grow
Yeah.
and things like that. So right before, or not right before, but a couple of years before I met my husband, I was at a point though that I was like, maybe I don't even need to be married anymore. I think, I've done marriage, because sometimes we get like that too. Like I've done marriage,
Yeah.
and things like that. So um I was not thinking about getting married. So when I met my husband, coincidence, I met my husband here in Las Vegas while I was still living in Texas.
Oh. How did
I
that
came, I
happen?
say it's God.
Yeah.
I came to Las Vegas from Texas on a birthday. It was my birthday,
Mhm.
and I came to Texas, and I was went to a pool party that they had at one of the casinos here,
Mm.
and that's where I met my husband.
Oh, nice. I'm actually going to Las Vegas, for my birthday next week.
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
nice, nice.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I actually met my husband,
Mhm.
and then we had a long uh distance relationship, but at first it wasn't a relationship because my husband too had been married a couple of
Mhm.
times,
Yeah,
and he was in his life where he wasn't sure if he wanted to be married again either.
yeah.
But we, started to, just talk about, things we wanted in our life and, what kind of life we wanted and things like that. And then he is who really made me think that maybe I do want to be married again. At
Mhm.
first, not maybe him,
Yeah.
but I had thought maybe I do want to be married again.
Mhm.
So, um, when I returned to Texas, and just, we would, stay in touch a little bit, on the phone and
Yeah.
everything like that. But I started to put a list together. Sometimes they say
Mhm.
these lists you put together about, the things you want, the
Mhm.
things, you don't want in a relationship. So I put 26 things on my
Mhm.
list.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I put these 26 things on my list.
Mhm.
And so as I started to get to know my husband, my now husband, over the phone, and then a couple of visits and things like that. I started to check off these things on my
Mhm.
list just
Yeah.
on him.
Mhm.
And as I, checked things off more as I got to know him,
Mhm.
I had checked off 24 of the 26 things.
Nice. Nice.
And so I said, this is probably my husband
Right, right.
because he met 24 of the 26 things I had. And
Yeah.
the two things that he didn't make on my list was he's not an outdoors person. I'm an
Mhm.
outdoors person.
Oh,
You,
okay.
you know, his, I'm a, I like to go camping, the whole tent
Mhm.
thing. His
Yeah.
camping is in a cabin.
Yeah, yeah, that's me.
And then the other thing was that he smoked,
Mm,
and he smoked cigarettes.
mhm.
And that one I kind of could overlook because he would never, smoke in front of me because I don't smoke. So he would
Yeah,
never smoke, he would go outside and smoke. He would freshen up his breath before he come back, things like that.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, that one I might could,
Mhm,
do. He met these other things. So that's what helped me, kind of determine that this may be the person.
mhm, mhm. That's awesome. That's really, like, really good confirmation to get you in there, but what were a couple things that were on your list that were, like, I guess you can say, like, general, like, non-negotiables or something?
So my non-negotiables, and they were at the top of my list.
Mhm.
One of them was he had to have a relationship with God, his own relationship.
Yeah,
And so that was one. He had to be secure with his own self. He had to be um, a good provider.
yeah,
He had to be someone that I could truly trust that his word was his word.
yeah, yeah.
And I can tell you that that does not change.
Mhm,
My husband, if
mhm,
he tells me something, it is going to happen.
mhm. That's
It is
awesome.
going, it is going to happen.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's what has allowed me to, actually just fully uh, put my trust into him. But let
yeah.
me back up just a little bit,
Mhm.
because sometimes, even in the best relationships, so
Mhm.
this is my best relationship by far. And
Yeah.
anybody listening knows that because of the story I told before.
Mhm.
But even in the best relationships,
Yeah.
sometimes there is things that that are happening behind the scenes that are not lining up. So I say that to say this. I said I had did all of this work on myself to get myself, to a place where I could, meet someone else and have the things.
Yeah.
But I still carried some insecurities. I
Mhm.
carried, and to say everybody is, no one's, without any insecurities.
Yeah.
Some, you have some, but I carried some that could have jeopardized this relationship,
Yeah. Yeah.
that could have jeopardized this relationship. And I thought I had worked on them
Mhm.
to where it wouldn't.
Yeah.
But just dealing with my husband and the interaction and everything with us,
Yeah.
sometimes things would come up, and then there I go. I'd go, oh, maybe he's not the one. Maybe that,
Yes.
something there.
Yeah.
But my husband, he called some things to my attention too.
Mhm.
And at first, again, sometimes, um, they were uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Some of it was hurtful,
Yeah.
but as I thought about them, processed them, and then as I let him explain to me, what he meant by it,
Yeah.
then it was okay. It wasn't how I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
like, um, I know what you mean though, because like you can't really, when we go through like the healing process or whatever by ourselves, but you can only know how much you've actually healed in those areas when you're placed back in the situation where you're interacting with another person in that way. So like, but because you were back in another relationship, then you can see if you truly healed, because like you're interacting with that person. But before, like, we think that we've healed because we're single, we're by ourselves, we're like we're it's just us and our therapist. And until we're placed back in those situations with like relationships with people, then we won't truly know if we truly healed. So that's good. And to have the patience um to allow people to point out things that may be uncomfortable, that's a good thing.
it is, and
Yeah.
it's hard. It's
Very.
hard
Yeah.
because, it feels like, or it felt like to me when he did, it was attacking. And
Yeah.
that was because some of that old
Hmm.
I had still not let go. I
Yeah.
thought I had let it go, but I had not let it go. And so it was me having to deal with me and make sure that I let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome that you were able to do that. So so yeah, you gave us the confirmation. Okay. Yeah, so that's awesome. So I guess my next question to you would be, if going back to before you went you were in any relationship, so before you start liking boys and all that, before you were 16, what would you tell your childhood self about relationships before she even thought about being in one?
That's kind of hard, as a child. What do you say to a child because they're not even thinking?
Hmm.
I would say to my young adult self that make sure, however, that you heal that stuff,
Hmm.
that you find some place, to heal,
Yeah.
and that um you're still, you're okay, meaning you're okay as a person.
Hmm.
There's nothing, that is wrong with you. A lot of wrong things happen
Yeah.
that some were out of your control, that influenced the things later, even that, that you did. But here's the bottom line: how I had to, really get through it with me is to say is I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the knowledge to do anything other than what I was doing in
Yeah.
those situations.
Yeah.
I didn't, have anyone, you know, um, to teach me about being a wife, or even far as um, being a woman or a young girl that knew truly about self worth,
Yeah.
self love,
Yeah.
those things like that. I
Yeah.
didn't know any of those things. So I would say that as a young woman, if you know you dealt with, traumas like that, in your childhood, that when as a young woman, that those are the first things before you try to get in a relationship with someone else, is that you make sure that those things, that you have healed from those things.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's very important, because we a lot of times, and I know that now, what I didn't get from my childhood is what I was looking for in
Mm.
these relationships.
Yeah.
And you know, so I would say what I've learned now is it has to start with self-love. It has to start with self-worth, so that you're not in a relationship, or if you happen to get in, because sometimes you don't know if you're going to get in that relationship till you're in it.
Yeah.
Because we say a lot of times is people don't always show you, we're used to saying people show you who they are. I
Yeah.
mean, they do, but sometimes you don't pick up those signs until you're really in it,
Yeah.
until someone has, put their hands on you or something like that.
Yeah.
But when you've gotten to that point, then you need to again figure out, go back to reevaluating your self-love, your self-worth. And
Yeah.
it does not come from outside of you. It's
Mhm.
all inside of you. And
Mhm.
you have to find out how to develop it,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
That's
know.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Healing, self-worth, self-love. Yeah. Um, so my last question is and it may also be like similar to what you just gave, but for our the women that are listening, our audience listening, that are in those tough situation of separation and divorce right now, who are still struggling, what is your biggest piece of advice for those women?
So women that are divorced right now is, you know, it's bad, because I say marriage is one, probably, up there with one of the hardest things that you ever have to do.
Yeah.
And then if you were, truly in it, and we are, especially as women, a lot of times we fall in love much quicker, much deeper than men.
Mhm.
So um, coming out of it, you still have to make sure that you um, know, or re engage back into your self worth
Yeah.
and your self love. And that you have to continue, to show yourself all of those things, while you're waiting, on someone else, to come along,
Mhm.
because all of that has to be intact, or you are getting into a bad situation again.
Yeah.
Because there is no one, I mean, there's you know people out there, your husband, whoever, can love you very, very deeply,
Mhm.
but they can't love you into your self-worth. They
Mm.
can't love you into your self-love.
Yeah.
And you will always be questioning that. If you don't find it within yourself, you will always be questioning that. They can't love you enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, or show you that you're worthy enough,
Mhm.
if it's not inside of you and you don't have it yourself,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
you
good.
know. And it is possible, it is possible out there, but you have to be open. You
Mhm.
have to be open to the situation, because sometimes, like I was saying earlier, being older, I didn't really think about getting married again. And sometimes, we say, because I have some friends, because I'm older, so I have some older friends
Yeah.
that, late 50s, 60s into their 70s, say, you know, I don't want to, they say, I don't want to be married.
Yeah.
And so the question I ask them a lot of times, um, because I can see the merit, I mean, maybe they truly don't want to be married, because it's okay if you
Yeah.
truly don't want to be married. But what I ask them is the reason why you don't want to be married is because you truly do not want to be married?
Mhm.
Or is it because you do not want to go through what you've been through.
Yeah.
And those are two different things.
Yeah.
Those are two different things. And so, to anybody that is looking to get remarried, don't let what you've been through keep you from getting married again if you desire that.
Mm-hmm.
But you just need to know that you have to find all of this that you're looking for out there inside of you first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that when somebody comes along and they're not that right person, you pick up on those things real quick.
Real quick. Yeah.
Because when you have self-love and self-worth and all of your identities, are in place,
Mm-hmm.
no one can come and just you know say bamboozle you.
Mm-hmm.
That just can't come. Eventually they can come at first, a little bit, because they
Yeah.
kind of, they always show their niceness first.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as you get to know them,
Mm-hmm.
and, as you truly get to know them, you'll start to see, that their things or what they're trying to show you or give you do not match up with
Yeah.
what you're truly looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you'll know that that's not the situation for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's out there. It's out there
Yeah.
for all women that
Mm-hmm.
want to be married again. If you want to be married again, it's out there. There are plenty good men out there that are looking for wives. And there's just as many, I think, men that have been in bad marriages as well,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why, we have to heal. And
Yeah.
another thing, I'm a stress. Therapy, therapy,
Yes.
therapy. The deeper, I believe, the wounds, because some people have some very, very deep wounds,
Yeah.
you are going to need therapy. Do not be afraid to get into therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Do not let someone else tell you, because I was told sometimes too when I was wanting to get in therapy by family members, saying, get over it. You're
Yeah.
grown. Get past it.
Mm-hmm.
It's your past. Don't let anybody tell you that. This is
Yeah.
your life, and you live it and choose it how you want to.
Yeah.
And if you have some deep trauma wounds that need to be worked out,
Mm-hmm.
get into therapy.
Yeah.
Get into therapy, and then find you a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I'm thriving right now in my marriage, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still in therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in therapy. I have a coach
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
I'm just trying to continue to better myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, better, because if I better myself, it betters my relationships.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I think that's like a huge thing, especially for women who are still like struggling in that area, is therapy. Like that's one of the big pieces that I had when I was going through that tough space is therapy. Yes. God plus therapy.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's another big one too. God.
Yeah.
God is the big thing, and you keep him in the forefront too.
Yeah.
Continue to pray. Praying all the time, reading my scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big thing too.
Mm-hmm.
But therapy is a very big thing too, because these people have been trained. They are, medically trained to look for things and know things that you're not sure of,
Yeah.
that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know what trauma was. You're sometimes affected by different things, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can have trauma and not even know it was trauma
Yeah.
until someone trained points it out to you.
Yeah. Yep.
But that thing has been keeping you from being your best self.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. Well, this was a great talk. Thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you after this video?
So if you want to connect with me or just want to talk, you can send me a email at blessedwifey04 and that's B as in boy, LSSD as in dog, WFE04
Okay. And I'll make sure I'll put that in the description box. Thank you so much, Vernie, for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you. Thank
And this
you.
was awesome.
It
All
was.
right.
It was fun. Thank you for the opportunity. And
Yes.
like I said before, you are inspiring. And I'm, really glad that you're doing this. We need to talk,
Yeah.
from every areas about this, about marriage, with women that haven't been married, women
Yeah.
that been married. And then we need to talk to women that's been married 50 years. I'm waiting for you to find
Yeah.
someone like that. Like, what does that look like? What
Yeah.
did it take, to get to that 50 years that
Yeah.
can impart, wisdom,
Yeah.
on women?
Yeah.
So thank
Definitely.
you.
Thank you so much. You are awesome. And all right, Club More, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.